Frieren, the funeral. Not the demon killing bit, but the crying bit. That scene. It might be the one scene that Frieren is best known for. It's all over those damn reviews that call this the best anime of all time. And well, it's maybe the most important scene, no matter how far away we get from Himmel's funeral. It seems there's just always more and more to discover here. Even the original title is working off of the funeral, and Frieren might be at one long funeral. The opening episode as a whole is 3 set pieces, which all work in tandem. First is celebration, then is conclusion, and then in mourning. It's a bookend to Himmel's life, but also to Frieren's adventure afterwards. So I have a lot to say about this 8-page, 4.5-minute sequence. Alright. The funeral. This is about more than just the funeral, but let's start where the ceremony actually begins, revisiting the royal capital. This town, well, I suppose it's a city, it has got a cathedral after all. We get the capital established in 3 different ways, but the difference is most striking in the last one. The funeral scene plays off that earlier view of the town. It was once full of life, with Evan Cole's fantastic soundtrack blaring. We saw the town in light and celebration, then in the everyday tranquility of the era of peace that Himmel created. And finally, we see it in mourning. Even in the funeral, the colour palette is so recognizable from those times. There's no booming soundtrack, it's silent. The funeral uses sound both diegetically and metatextually, the silence showing the depth of public love for Himmel, but also for the viewer cutting off that impacting soundtrack to put you into the shoes of Frieren's private grief. The first stage of the funeral is more for that public view of Himmel, for the legend of the hero. As we move inside the church, we quickly cut to Himmel, lying in state, obviously aged, but being buried with that same cloak. We're avoiding the cliche of making it a grim, overcast day. It's the same cheery weather we saw in the other 2 visits to the royal capital. We don't need to make it a cloudy day too. The scene inside the church, it corresponds pretty closely to the reception after they return from the adventure. There's the parallel and cycle that comes at the end of Himmel's life and the end of the journey. Just little visual details that tie the 2. There are beams of light drifting through the window, there's the same stained glass window of the goddess itself. A similar order of the shots, we even have the emblems in one shot on the wall and on the other, they're on the guards. These details are all here to anchor the scene of Himmel's death in his greatest public accomplishment. Both of these scenes are ultimately public, therefore the crowd is not for Himmel or those close to him. On the one hand, it's where they're getting official acknowledgement of their achievements, of their deeds. But on the way there, Himmel's head is already in the aftermath. The bit in the throne room is just the public acknowledgement. It's not for them. It's the same for the official mourning of Himmel. While the party are waiting off to the side, others are paying their respects. A lot of this is expanded from the manga, but the parallels are a nice touch. As we first cut to the party, nobody actually looks all that sad. Heiter's first words are that he thinks Himmel was happy. That ending they had together privately is very different from this public one. The party is framed to isolate them from the crowd. Are those here for Himmel the legend or Himmel the man? They're separated. Our focus goes from the isolation of the funeral, the grandeur and the crowds, to Frieren personally, as she overhears one of the mourners. And yeah, this woman just flat out sucks. Yeah. But I think Frieren was going to break eventually either way. So this piece of work over here, she asked if Frieren was one of Himmel's companions. I mean, that giant statue of her you apparently lived near. That didn't make it clear, did it? Anyway, she gives Frieren pause. The mage has spent a long time absolutely closing herself off for fear of getting hurt. We kind of come back to the hedgehog's dilemma with elves, but her contemplation is cut off completely, with the other 2 being little shits calling out to the peanut gallery. They're not sad either. They're trying to deflect an emotional problem their friend might not understand back onto themselves. Her companions are trying to help her insulate herself, but I think she's pretty locked in with her thoughts at this point. We're getting close to a breaking point for Frieren. The way you're put into the emotion here is very powerful. It relies on one of those earlier slices that we talked about. So the visual cuts start to line up with another of the 3 set pieces here. This time, it's Himmel's death. Frieren's breaking and realization of her emotions is done in parallel with the earlier death scene. We cut to the body from her point of view, then to a close-up of Frieren's expression changing. As it sinks in and her walls finally break. For Himmel's death shot, we get the view of what he sees to expression and reaction. Frieren is seeing the body properly and the permanence of what's happening is sinking in. It's the same as his last view of seeing the meteor. That point of view shot as he dies, that little expression change though, is masterfully done. It's the same visual language. These 2 shots are a pair, they match. It's Himmel recognizing the beauty that he's had, and then Frieren, a bit late, kind of realizing the same thing. It echoes. The Himmel shot comes at the end of his life. Frieren's comes at the start of a new one. This shot of Frieren, it might be the one in the thumbnail, I think, is right before he says that she was always there in his lovely memories. It feels similar to that remembered shot of Himmel at the funeral. We're seeing what they're thinking of in both cases. It's both point of view. While Frieren was seeing the Himmel she has to live past, Himmel was just focused on the good stuff, the memories. Thank you, Frieren, is like his second to last sentence. After his passing, we get Frieren's walls finally breaking down, and it's really her realizing the same thing. They're both reflecting at the end of a journey. For Himmel, the end of life. For Frieren, the end of an apathetic, closed-off life. And they both come to a conclusion about their time together. Frieren's is this, and Himmel's is thank you. But I think the journey Frieren ends up going on afterwards, it's essentially a thank you to him in her own way. Just as Himmel went on a little journey reflective of their big adventure right before the end, Frieren goes on a journey after the end. For both of them though, the real purpose is just to see each other again. The inside portion of the funeral had been more for everyone, but the next segment, where Himmel gets laid to rest, it gets a bit more personal. We hear 4 rings. Next, the action, at least in the anime, moves outside the main building to a graveyard, back into the fields like the journey to the meteor shower or the journey in the cart on the way back. But Himmel's burial outside comes after Frieren has become unstuck. The music is still absent, it doesn't need it, just the sound of permanence. How's our party holding up? Haita looks kinda hopeful here. Himmel died happy, his warmth in processing grief for his lifelong friend. I think it's something that doesn't hit the first time around. You don't have the context yet, don't know him well enough, but once we see his views on mortality, his hopefulness of Himmel dying happy, these little details with him, they start to sting, man. But yeah, now I'm done talking about that one frame or panel. Frieren has completely broken. She's just trying to reason through her feelings to the rest of the party. After all those years, keeping emotions at bay for so long is broken, and now they're all flowing out. She didn't know anything about him. She thinks through the memories, again, flooding back as she's watching the last of the dirt cover the coffin. Even for the flashbacks, it's big flashes of emotion, but they're silent. There's nothing to go with it. We get to experience it like Frieren does. Himmel's experience of the meteor shower was the beauty, so we got that beautiful soundtrack to go with it. Whereas Frieren is seeing this. We don't get comfort of the music because she doesn't either. Both are point of view shots of a change, but one is considerably rougher. In the first shots of Frieren, you can see the trail of tears already. It's there, but obscured by the lower framing. Haito is in the distance behind, Frieren is the focus, looking for words, still slightly holding it together, but the voice begins to betray it. We get this clip of Himmel as Frieren is completely breaking. Like the other point of view shots, I think it's from what she's seeing. It's the same clip of Himmel as we see at the end of the mage test. Where it would have been embarrassing when we meet again. Why is she thinking of this moment right now? They only travelled together a mere 10 years. Is she remembering what he thinks to goodbyes? Why they didn't have one? Himmel said thank you, that was his goodbye. Something small, something generous. It's then when her voice fully breaks, they both notice, and we get the pan over with all the tears, the regret, the mourning. Why didn't she try to get to know him better? She had 50 years, she didn't know anything about him. I mean, of course, the number of times she brings up something Himmel, the hero, would have done, did do, or, something he liked. She knew him. Of course she knew him. She goes out after this to learn more about humans, but seems to end up viewing a lot of them entirely through the lens of Himmel. Through that comparison alone, as if he's the only human that she actually understands. You couldn't do that if you didn't know him. But ultimately, Frieren has been called for a reason. Elves as a race are. Their longevity would make things awful if they didn't close themselves off. Himmel has punctured it, and the pain of outliving everyone has broken through entirely. She did know Himmel, but as the weight of restrained emotions is flooding out, it might feel like she didn't. After that one big shot, we switch to Frieren's back. It frames these 3 alone. They had that time together, so they alone can understand. Frieren's reaction here, separating them, it gives them a separate mourning to the rest of the onlookers, isolating the party, bonded through experience, just like we saw them separate at the ceremony. The way Frieren's grief is framed is really interesting too. In the church, we see her head on. Then we start to get point of view shots as she's processing the feelings to put you in her shoes, then brim-packed this complete pan of grief. But afterwards it's spent. We cut to their backs for a bit of privacy. It makes that one shot of the tears streaming much more impactful. The rest of her grief is out of frame. Possibly as she isn't understanding her own emotions, we don't get the ease of a head-on shot where it's easy for us to understand her too. A lot of the framing seems to highlight that difficulty for her. Then they both silently move to comfort her. Did they understand this was going to happen? Were they worried about it? That after thousands of years closed up, when it broke through, it was going to hurt. But we cut back to this, another landmark of the royal capital, framing Himmel's death, the victory, the meteor shower, with Frieren's eventual, actual growth 50 years later as the climax of all three. I'm going to break from the heavy stuff for a minute to talk about the music, because the way it's used in this episode is fantastic. Or maybe the way it's not used just as much. In the funeral scene, we only get these little chanting funeral dirges. It's music enough to show that we're in a holy building in this setting, but we only really hear what Frieren and the party would be hearing. The dialogue, the bells, the soil hitting the coffin. We don't get a score. Compare that to the adventure, when we get the big epic soundtrack, then the return and celebration. Comfort of it is taken away. To better connect with Frieren, we could have had a big wailing score at these sad moments, but it's more impactful to only hear what the characters would hear. I think it would have been easy to score it, go big. When you've got a soundtrack like this one, it would work, but it's fantastic restraint not to. Even in the scene where they're leaving, it's still the diegetic noises, the cart being pulled, no big score for the ring scene. It's not until we're on the road again adventuring when the music actually comes back. I can't play music in these, so often I shy away from talking about it too directly. But going back, one of the first things you notice in the funeral scene is the confidence of the score. Evan Core's music is beautiful throughout, especially in the meteor shower and returning from the journey, but taking it away for one of the most powerful scenes is a statement. The music might be different in Himmel's funeral, but the whole structure of Frieren is kind of here in these three segments. It's a deceptively great way of introducing the story. Frieren has a structure presenting these flashbacks alongside the present day, or, well, I don't know, is this the present day? Is this a kingdom long time ago, far, far away? I don't actually know when this is set, but you know what I mean, the present true line. Anyway, the whole series is a mix of past and present, so naturally the opening introduces this too. Not with a lengthy Himmel flashback, but I think the opening structure still gets it. Like any of the Himmel flashbacks and the current plot in later sections, each of these threads are relevant to each other. There's the funeral, but that's only one. There's three set pieces which are bookends for Himmel's life and also for Frieren's transformation. There's the return from the adventure and retreating back into apathy for Frieren. There's the meteor shower and journey and Himmel's death. And finally the funeral. With Himmel gone, we get to see the impact on Frieren soak in. We got his big celebration, his last moment, and then his legacy. But it introduces the idea of connecting experiences across a large chasm of time, how they echo through a life. The very opening of the show is Frieren reading in a cart, but it's setting the funeral up in miniature. And not because the burial distracts Frieren from her book. I mean, maybe the funeral interrupted her reading, but I don't mean that. It's Himmel pulling her back out of her focus, back to engage with the world. She's lost in her own little space, trying to keep everyone at arm's length, and Himmel reaches out to pull her out of her apathy. It's only briefly, but second time's the charm, right? It's the same at the end of the funeral. Frieren is pulled out of her own world by Himmel before leaving on a new adventure, but it's the same structure as the flashback present stuff later. There's more call forwards in the funeral though, especially when it comes to goodbyes. Once the funeral is done, we're met with our third batch of goodbyes for what remains of the party, and it's possible that it'll be their last. Frieren playing with the ring is an anime edition as well, which I've talked about before, so I won't dwell on it, but it's a nice detail to catch when you're going back through. We don't know the significance of it yet. It'll take her even longer to figure that ring out though. Heiter's look at Eisen and Frieren as he's leaving is as if he thinks it might be the last time. It isn't though. Frieren sees him again like a few pages later, so already from the funeral, Frieren has grown. She's applying this to Heiter to make sure the mistake isn't repeated. Sure, there might be 20 years between the funeral and the meeting, but no one ever said she had it all figured out. He takes one more look at them, in case it's the last time, and Frieren seems a little concerned. The music finally returns here when she asks if he's afraid of dying. It swells as he dwells on their glory days again before leaving. Frieren also decides to leave to learn more about humans. The funeral has made her want to get to know humanity, but kind of herself too, since she needs to understand why Himmel finally broke through. Living a long time makes emotions a bit of a liability, but she's been snapped out of apathy now and can't go back. This is the start of the journey. There's so much that comes back up in the funeral scene that we only get the significance to later, so I don't think we're even done with it yet. I think in another batch of arcs there might be even more significance here, more weight to the grief. But in a way, her journey after is one long funeral, or maybe a wake would be better, an ongoing testament to Himmel. There's a difference in title for Frieren in different languages. From the pun Frieren at the funeral to Beyond Journey's End, and in some places it's just Frieren or something else. Beyond Journey's End gets across that it's after the main quest, but the funeral is that this is kind of a long funeral. It's years since his death that we count. A personal transformation begins here. Centuries of repressing emotions ends, and the journey that follows is a natural extension of that funeral. It's a scene that best lets us understand Frieren. What comes next is a celebration of Himmel's life by trying to embrace what might have been his life's work, getting the elf to put her book down. Hey, thanks for watching. If you got all the way through, there's a sub button. You know how it works, right? Cheers.